Let's look at the process of completing the square. Completing the square, in my opinion, is the last option whenever you're asked to solve quadratics. So this is a trinomial, and there are three other options that I believe are better, but it's still good to know this process. I've seen this in other math classes. We use it when we're solving for ellipses or hyperbolas. So the process is still helpful. There's just other ones that I believe are better. That's factoring, graphing, or the quadratic formula. Those all, I believe, should be used before this process. But again, this process is still good to know, so let's practice. Completing the square, the intention is to get a perfect square trinomial. Now right now, this should factor or could factor into something and we'd be done. To complete the square, the process looks like this. I take the constant and I move it over here. This area now needs to be filled in with a certain value. That value is going to help me create a perfect square trinomial. To find that value, what you do is you take your middle value and divide it by 2. So negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. And then you square it. Negative 5 squared is a plus 25. What I do to the left, I have to do to the right. So again, middle, divide by 2, square it. Now this statement is a perfect square trinomial. X minus 5 squared should equal, add this up, 49. So again, if you go to do this process here and you don't get a perfect square trinomial, you can go back and fix your mistake. The reason why this is valuable is because a perfect square trinomial, I can now square root both sides. I need to get rid of a square, so I square root. X minus 5 should equal plus or minus 7. The reason why I write plus or minus is I need two answers. Add 5 over. So I have plus or minus 7 plus 5. So let's get the two answers. The first answer is positive plus a positive. So 7 plus 5 is your 12. Negative 7 plus 5 is negative 2. Those two answers are going to be placed back in here. Check your work and it should equal 0 every time. Completing the square is extremely valuable when you can't simplify. Maybe you can't factor. Maybe you can't graph it. Add this value over, take half of the middle, square it, perfect square trinomial. That's the key, getting that perfect square trinomial. Square root both sides, and now you should be able to simplify. It's allowed, and in your process, sometimes you get imaginary numbers. That's okay. This does allow us for some complex answers. That could be a benefit of this process. Remember, half of the middle, square it. Perfect square trinomial. That's what you're hoping for when you go through to complete the square.